Hello and welcome. I am Adam the Silly Hoss and this is Hoss Watch. Today I would like to talk to you about a new series, namely Bridgerton. Bridgerton is a period drama series from Netflix. It depicts the early 1800s life of the noble circles of London, presenting young ladies to the royal court, and it pretty much gives us a glimpse how the higher society worked in that era, how young ladies and gentlemen met and, well, ended up being a couple, whether it was love or convenience or some sort of necessity. That's another story. But anyway, overall, strangely, I like this series. At first, after the first couple of episodes, I wasn't really into it, but throughout the season, I grew attached to some of the characters, and I turned out to actually like the story. Because to say something positive, there are interesting storylines, there are good subplots that makes you wanna sit down and watch it, and you want more and more and more. The characters are really diverse, the acting is good in my mind. I could really believe that some of the characters were like real, like I didn't feel like they are fake. What is negative is definitely the clothes and the hairstyles. I mean, they are pretty much contemporary. I mean, modern contemporary, like in our time. I mean, it screams when I look at the clothes that they were made today. And they have pretty much nothing to do what people wore 200 years ago, although they try to be somewhat authentic. It just feels really, really bad. The colors, the makeup, that's like, oh my, that's a bit too much, I think. And the other thing is that regarding the main storylines, you can figure it out pretty fast. They reveal a bit too much, I think, in the beginning, considering that it's a season of 8 episodes. Pretty much by the end of the first episode, you will know that what will happen. But before we get there, be warned, spoilers ahead. In the very first episode, we can already see that this society, the highest levels of the nobility, is a really weird society where perception of being pure and flawless is something that is extraordinary, while people just slide down into nothingness and disregard if they make the slightest of mistakes. So there is absolutely no mercy and no leniency if someone does something that is not considered 100% appropriate. So I don't really like that, because I always say that we are all people, we make mistakes, even if we want to do our very best, and even if we have the best of intentions in our hearts, we make mistakes eventually. So judging someone and pretty much ruining them in that era for making something so trivial as to say something wrong or do something wrong, that is just wrong to me. But in the first episode, you can pretty much figure out who will be the main couple. They point out the main protagonist as Daphne, who is getting presented at the royal court, and she becomes the best rated young lady So she quickly becomes the most eligible lady, whom will be pretty fast surrounded by all the bachelors. And when I say bachelors, usually people think about men in their 20s, maybe early 30s, but as you can see, in this society there are old men who still hunt for young women. I mean, men in their 50s and 60s, and I don't want to judge that because that's not my place, but to me that is just weird. And back then, 200 years ago, it seems that it was completely normal that a young lady was thrown to a man like that for no apparent reason, but because their families wanted that, so that's just bad. But anyway, let's get back to the main point. We also meet the main bachelor, Simon, who is a duke, and I guess that's one of the higher titles, because if I remember correctly, that's the highest title below the prince. The reason I think that because all the monarchs' children, or rather the grandchildren, are dukes. Like the Queen Elizabeth's husband is Duke of Edinburgh, Prince William is Duke of Cambridge, so I think that Duke is the highest title below royalty. Anyway, back to the main point once again. So you can pretty much figure out fast that Daphne and Simon, that they will come together. You know that it will happen. We will also know that, like in Pride and Prejudice, that it will take some time. I mean, yeah, it will take some... I don't even know how many episodes we have to see their struggles, because this is a typical love story when there is a couple, they are really interested in each other and eventually they fell in love, but there are dramas everywhere, problems everywhere, and they will have to figure a way out to be together and to succeed in their love. And yeah, that takes too much episodes to my taste, and I didn't really like those storylines because some were really weird. If you have watched this series, then you know that Simon had a little problem with his own father, so he made a promise that he will never ever father children, which in my mind is stupid. Let me tell you why. Because he promised his dying father that I will not be happy ever again, so that I could make you miserable for the next few minutes until you die. That was pretty much it. So, I mean, he was willing to throw away his own happiness, his own life, everything, just to spite his horrible father, because let's be honest, his father was a horrible person. But I am just like, seriously? People really can make sometimes the stupidest decisions ever. And that was like that. And, well, not surprisingly, by the end of the first season, he overcame in this problem and he eventually becomes a father when Daphne gives him a son. I mean, that was a really nice scene in the end. But let's move on. As the episodes are ongoing, you can really see that these people, the nobility, they don't have street smarts. Many of them are not clever. They just inherit a title and sometimes a lot of money, and they just live blindly. They don't really have any real goals in life. And this especially is hard on the ladies, because society expected them to live in a certain way, just sit at home, be with the kids, read a book maybe, be nice to the people and especially to their husbands, and that's all. And even to men, I mean, what do they really do? They gamble, they fight, they gossip. That's not much of a life. And that was the nobility, the highest class of society, and it's horribly boring. There are also another family, the Featheringtons, which is a really interesting family, more interesting than the Bridgertons, because the Featherington matriarch, I mean, she seems to be a versatile woman. She knows what she wants and she wants to get it. I see power and determination behind her. And to me, even though she's not a good woman in my mind, I can respect her more for trying, for wanting more, and for craving to be something better, for wanting success for herself and for her family. I respect that more than the Bridgerton's matriarch, who is like, yeah, it would be nice if things would go in a nice way, but if they don't, then whatever. If they go, then whatever. I mean, the Bridgerton matriarch is like invisible. But in the Featherington family, the patriarch of the family, I mean, he is a weird character. He pretty much doesn't do anything throughout the season, with the exception of gambling, looking in a real weird way to young ladies, and in the end dying a mysterious death, which leaves his family in a bit of a pickle, I guess, because someone else will inherit their home and everything else, because back in the day women could not inherit, which is ridiculous in my mind, and horrible, but guessing that back in that day and age nobody really cared about that, seemingly. So horrible times. But anyway, throughout the season I could see in many times that people can't really make up their minds, and even though many of them knew that what would be the good choice, they did not make good decisions. They rather went for something that either society expected of them, or they thought that it would be an easier way out, sort of a thing. So even though we knew from the beginning that Daphne and Simon will be a couple together, they did not choose marriage because that was something they both wanted. They chose because of a silly mistake, and it was pretty much, it felt like a forced marriage, regardless whether they both wanted it in some level. In the end, the marriage was like a forced marriage because they were both forced into it, because society expected them to stay pure. But they had a kiss, and oh my, seriously, that was bad. And of course, because they are pretty much forcing each other and themselves into this marriage, they both feel horrible, which makes more problems and more conflicts that they have to get through in a couple of episodes. But they eventually manage to do it. And when they overcome their problems, then I think they will become some sort of a power couple, because Daphne is smarting up, and Simon definitely has the brains, and he has somewhat of a moral superiority, which is not necessarily good, but I think he might be able to manage it. We of course also get the obligatory Gretna Green storyline, where there is another couple who feel like running away, but of course things turn out a bit different, so it doesn't come together. There are really interesting side characters that make this show really interesting. One of them is the tailor, who is like a little clever lady. The other one is Lady Vesseldon, who is a mysterious lady that we cannot actually see until the very last episode. This lady makes pamphlets that gives gossiping material to the people, and everybody reads these pamphlets. These gossips can decide whether somebody becomes successful or whether somebody gets ruined. And in this sense, they are rather powerful and, in my mind, even unjust. Even though they try to depict it as Lady Vesseldon standing on the right side of the story, to me it's rather ambiguous. Especially when Lady Vesseldon at some point uses her pamphlets for her own reasons. And that is, for me, I mean, that feels selfish to me. And when it is finally revealed that who is Lady Vesseldon, that is like, that's not right. That's not possible. I mean, I still can't understand that choice, because there were many characters whom in my mind would have been good as Lady Vesseldon, even if it would be an unseen character who is just like acting in the backgrounds, and if she wouldn't have been revealed in the last episode, she could have been revealed later on. But she was revealed, and to me that was a disappointment, because the character who turns out to be Lady Vesseldon is pretty much someone whom I did not expect, because she didn't seem to have the smarts to be Lady Vesseldon, or she has a totally different act, which means that she's acting throughout her life, and her real personality is a mysterious lady. I don't know. I definitely have to see season 2 to decode which is which. One thing that makes me curious is about what's with the bees, the bumblebees. It appears many times, like 3-4 times throughout the series, but I have no idea why is that so. If anybody has any idea, please tell me, because I am not really good at decoding mixed messages at all. In the end of the season, pretty much all problems have been resolved, with I think maybe 2 or 3 exceptions. One is that who will inherit the Featherington estate. The second, what will happen to Lady Vesseldon. And the third, and what will happen to Colin, who suddenly, for reasons that I cannot imagine, he travels to Greece to be like a British soldier or something like that. I will be honest, and I did not understand that part of the story. But anyway, the series ends in a probably a more or less positive note, but there are some questions left unanswered, so I guess that will happen in the second season. And I really hope that Netflix will order a second season, because I think that this is an interesting series, and at any given time I really love to have a period drama, because most TV series are in the modern world and they are just so boring sometimes. Give me a good period drama, or at least something good fantasy-like, because they are somewhat better than a cop series most of the time. But anyway, I am curious, do you agree with me, or do you have a different opinion? Share it with me in the comments below, please. Anyway, Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share, subscribe, you know the drill. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Goodbye.